Okay, so let me introduce our topic today, which is how to create wealth, how to build a financial legacy as a creative. Now, first of all, what do we know as a legacy? A legacy is not what you leave for people. It is not just what you leave for people, the assets, the structures, and the values. It is also what you leave in them. So a legacy is what you pass on to people across generations. So you're not just passing assets, you're also passing values in them. And this quote was made by Peter Struple. Now, a financial legacy refers to the wealth, resources, and financial values that you leave behind for future generations or causes that you care about. But it is not just about money, right? It is also about impact. So now, when we are talking about a legacy, and then at some point you hear people saying, "Oh, his legacy lives on." When you make your research into that person that you're talking about, his or her legacy being living on, you would notice that they're not just talking about the money or the land he or she amassed before exiting, but rather they are also talking about the impact that he made in the family and in the society. They're also talking about the values that he instilled in people all around him, or she instilled in people all around her. So when we are talking about legacy, we're not just talking about money, we're not just talking about assets, we're not just talking about trust funds, because I'm sure that is the first thing that comes to people's mind when they hear, oh, this person left a legacy behind. Now, why does a financial legacy matters? A financial legacy matters because your intellectual property can outlive you if managed wisely. Now, an intellectual property is 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 an intangible asset of an individual that is gotten from the person's thoughts. Now, when you're talking about intellectual property, say, let's give an example. Um, this author, Chimamanda Adichie, right? Now, her intellectual property are her books, all the books that she has written. And we all know how great a writer Chimamanda is. And even if, God forbid, she died tomorrow, we would still remember her by her books. Now, in that same way, we can see now that her intellectual property has outlived her. Why? Because she managed it wisely while she was alive. God forbid. I'll just keep on repeating the God forbid because I cannot be wishing for someone's death. But I'm just trying to give. Okay, now let me use an example of someone who's already dead. Um, Let me not just waste our time. I'm sure we all understand the example I used with Chimamanda Adichie. And the second reason why it matters is because without structure, your income disappears when you stop creating. Now, there's actually a system and a structure behind the books that Chimamanda has written because even after her launch date, the books are still on sale at bookshops and festivals and concerts, wherever it is that books are being sold. Her books are still on top of shelves. Why? Because there are systems behind it. If there was no system or there was no structure behind it, after her launch date, she might have she would have sold just the ones she printed there before the launch date. And after that, that would be the last time that anybody would ever lay hands on the book again. Why? Because it is no longer on sale. So now there's a particular structure and a system that makes sure that these properties, these books, these products are still out in the market and up for sale. I would leave you with one quote to think about. Don't just make money, make a difference. Don't just make a living, make a legacy. This is still a quote from the same person I referred to from the beginning, Peter Struple. Now, I remember hearing a particular thing from a conference. Now, let me just give you guys a shocker. I met King Elisha in a conference, and I will tell you the truth. Go out, network, and you'll be glad you did. So, at the conference where I met King Elisha, someone mentioned something, right? And he said that when all you have in your mind about making money is to make profit and how to spend it and how to do this and how to do that, how to buy the latest car, how to buy the latest phone, how to just something very, very, very abstract, that is when making the money would actually be hard for you. But when you redirect your focus, when you redirect your strength to actually making a change, making an impact, solving a particular problem for a set of people, that way your the money would just come to you without you having to pursue it. And I think the story he described that day was the fact that he okay, I think he was conversing with one of his friends, and then his friend was complaining about how his child could not pass exams well. I think it was the jammed exam right here. So he he after prayers, he got an inspiration to write a book about passing exams and what have you and all of that. And he gave it to his friend's daughter. Now, the girl wrote the exam after reading the book and passed. The man was the girl's father was shocked as to how she passed the exam, and then the girl was like, "Oh, Dad, it's the book you bought for me, and this and that." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And then there were a lot of persons whom the man spoke to about the book, and they were like, "Oh, that my own child too has just been failing. Not like he's practically failing, but he's just declining in his studies and in his grades and what have you." And he got the book, and from there on, the fact that the man who wrote the book was not just looking out to make profit. Funny enough, the price at which he sold the book was the exact same cost from which the printing press told him was the cost of printing the books. So the man was not just looking out to make profit, he just wanted to solve a particular problem about this set of children not being able to pass their exams. And the story went on and on and on as far as where there was a drastic change in scores of students in their JAMB examinations that got the notice of the governor of the particular state. And then the governor had to do a bulk purchase, still at the same cost price that the man placed it at. The governor of the state had to do a bulk purchase from the author of the book. And that was where, in less than a month, the man made billions and millions of naira, even without the idea of saying, "Oh, I want to make money." All he wanted to do was to solve a problem that he found in the society. Now, this is just to open up our eyes to making sure that we should redirect our focus from making profit to trying to make an impact in the society or solving a problem for a particular group of people. Let's go on. And now I'm going to introduce 4 very practical foundations of finance. Now, if you know these foundations at your fingertips, if you have them at the snap of a finger, trust me, there would be a drastic change in your finances moving on. Now, the reason why I say this is because I would use myself as an example, right? Yes, I studied banking and finance in school, but this practicality was not exactly instilled in school. Now, I'm not trying to downgrade the education that we got from higher institutions. What I'm trying to say now is, yes, they did their good job, but I think there is more job, or rather, there is more effort needed from us to build ourselves. So that is where you have to use the skills that you learned from King Elisha, as he mentioned yesterday, about reading books. I'm not going to lie to you. Those books he mentioned, which I'm sure he will be dropping the title of the books very soon, the books he mentioned, they are very powerful. And I would also send some titles to him that I have read for him to send on the group as well. Now, those books are really strong. And aside that, you also have to put yourself out there. The Google is your friend. ChatGPT is also your friend. Browse, ask questions, read books. Oh, hey, ChatGPT, which books can I read to help me grow my mindset? Which books can I read to help me grow my finance knowledge? Which books can I do this? Which books can I do that? And you'd see tons of them. And all you have to do is, if you feel that the price in the markets, in bookshops, are too expensive, Get the soft copies. There are a bunch of them online. Get the soft copies. Most of the soft copies are actually even cheaper. But if you're the kind of person who cannot deal with staying on the screen 24/7, you can go for the hard copies that are being sold at bookshops, and even online vendors sell books as well. So you have gotten the knowledge. Next thing you have to do is put in the work, put in the steps. Now, the first foundation of finance that we're going to be looking at is budgeting and tracking. And King Elisha mentioned yesterday about using the 50/30/20 rule. And the 50% goes to your needs, 30% to your wants, 20% to your savings and investment. Now, there are other forms of models for budgeting, right? And this budgeting method is even flexible, given if you're the kind of person who there are lesser things on your want list. Say the only thing on your want list is just maybe to purchase a few clothings, your entertainment, that is your Netflix subscription, and once in a while you don't eat out all the time, but you're just your want list is just very, very little. You'd notice that you could readjust the percentage that you allocated for your wants and push most of them either to the needs or to the savings and investments. Me, for instance, I know in some way, I mean, everything that has an advantage has a disadvantage, right? And I am an indoorsy kind of person. Aside from the day or aside from the days when I have to do something really important or really necessary outside, I am just inside my house at my workspace. And that has made me to realize that a lot of things on my want list are practically not important to me at the moment. At the moment, they are not important to me. So what I do, I use a 70, 10, and 20 rule. 70 for my needs, 10 for my wants, and 20 for my savings and investments. Some months, I even go as far as 70, 0, 30. Now, why I'm saying all of this is first, you have to, just like King Elisha mentioned yesterday, you have to study your income before you now be able to study your income and your expenses for a particular period of time before you now be able to allocate a certain percentage to it. Now, the reason why I was able to do my 70/0/30 and 70/10/20 is because I have studied myself and I have noticed that the fact that I am inside my house has made me realize that a lot of things on my want list are not necessary to me at that particular point in time. So I just focus all my income to my needs, which is just the basic utilities, rent, electricity, data subscription, mortgage payments, debts, and a whole lot of other things. And zero for my wants because there's actually I don't even use Netflix. I do everything I want to do on my YouTube. If I want to learn a particular course, either I'll go to YouTube or I use Udemy or whatever. But I'm not even on. I don't use Netflix. And I got to realize that after studying myself. So yes, I have a Netflix account. I had the subscription, but in a particular month, I wasted the entire subscription because I didn't even use it. So when I studied that part and noticed it, I was not able to review my monthly budget and redirected the money that I used for that subscription. I redirected it to another particular purpose. Now, after you have studied your income and your expenses and you've given yourself a particular model of budgeting, now there are certain tools that you can use to track your income and your expenses and also to create a budget for yourself, a monthly budget for yourself. And as a creative, you need to have budgets for yourself, which are sometimes called personal monthly budgets. And then you also need to have a budget for projects that you handle for clients. If you're a graphic designer or you're a brand designer or a videographer, photographer, whatever part of creativity that you have decided to venture into, you need to have a budget on how to allocate and make every naira to work for you. Now, some of those tools could be Google Sheets, YNAB. These are some of the applications that you can download either on your Google Play or on your App Store to help you track your income and expenses. And then we have some local banking apps. Another way to even track your income and expense that King Elisha mentioned yesterday was downloading your bank statement. Now, if you do not, if you're using the bank or if you're using the service of a bank that does not offer um, an online view of your bank statement from the bank app, you can just send an email requesting for your bank statement. Most banks, I don't even know about other banks, but the bank I use, every month I receive my bank statements in my email. Whether I send an email or not, I must, like, it is a must that on the first of a new month, I receive my bank statement from almost all the banks that I use. And mind you, I did not ask them. I did not send an email earlier asking for this. So it is your right. That is your account. It is your money that is in their custody. So you have the right to request for an account statement at the end of a particular month to study where your money has been going to, where your money is coming from. And after you have studied that, you'll now be able to control the excesses. You'll now be able to control the places that it is not supposed to go to. So take for instance, before I found my foot in financing and my personal finances very well. I was the kind of person that after I receive my income for the month, the first thing I'm like, oh, I have suffered enough for this month. I need to chill out a little. And just like in Elisha, the first thing I would do is I would go and eat food. And it's not like I'm even going to eat like an actual food. I'm just going out to just go and buy junk. And the kind of junk is just biscuits and drinks. That's all. And when I tell you the kind of satisfaction I get from that, as at then, it was inexplainable. But after I had made my research and I had studied well and everything, I found out that 20 to 30% of my income monthly goes to just biscuits and drinks. And that is almost the same amount that I can use for my savings and investments. And in that way, I would be able to grow my wealth. But thank God to the internet and knowledge, I was able to catch that so fast and cut it down. And I can tell you now that I am even living a happier life, given that I I did not entirely stop eating my junk. I mean, it's almost impossible. But the main thing I did was I cut it down to about a 98%. That even with the 20% that I moved to my savings and investment, the other portion that goes to the junk is now an extra on top of my savings and investment. So now I am now having a double portion for my savings and investment that I usually put aside for junk every month. Right. So now with such knowledge, I have been able to redirect my funds from where it was not growing for me to where it is now actually growing for me. The next foundation we're going to be looking at is called savings habits. And trust me, everybody, I think everybody in one time or the other has faced this thing where probably in the middle of the night, you're just scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or YouTube shorts, and you just see some motivational videos where you're like, oh, build your life, oh, do this and do that. And the next thing you just turn your switch on, you drop your phone, you arrange your bed, you fold your clothing, and you're like, and then you write down your goals that night, and you're like, oh, the next one I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to start saving, I'm going to start working out, I'm going to start, that's 1 a.m. motivation that comes in the middle of the night, right? And you set your alarms and you do everything that you have learned from the videos that popped up on your feed while you were scrolling that midnight. And the following morning, your alarm is ringing. The first one rings, the second one rings, the third one rings, and you're just turning it off and off and off. And you're like, oh my God, can I just sleep? So now that motivation usually comes up at the beginning. Now, let us relate it now to the savings habit that I'm trying to mention here, right? So now, when you're trying to build a habit, it is best. Now, I don't want to say this so that it sounds like it's coming from me, but I'm going to make a reference to a book I read, which is Atomic Habits. Trust me, I have read that book the first time. I am reading it the second time. And I am sure I'm going to read it up to 5 times because it's like every time I open the book, there's like a fresh knowledge of the same thing that I have read before coming back at me again. And after you've read it the first time, please, when you're reading it the second time, take a note, take a pen, jot down. Because you would be, even after jotting down, you would still notice that when you go back again, those things that you have read would still feel so fresh in your head and they would feel like new knowledge. So, what I learned from that book is when you're trying to build a new habit, don't just attack the habit straight on. Habits are things that grow one after the other. Now, habits grow like money in the sense that you do not have to put a lump sum now. You do not have to do the first big task now, but just start with the slightest thing, one task after the other, one task after the other, and in that way, you'll be sure that the habits are compounding on top of each other. Now, for this savings habits, the system you can put behind these savings habits, right, is to automate the transfers. Now, there are certain applications that allows you to set a particular date, a particular time, a particular amount to be deducted from your account balance every time. So when in at the particular point where you do not have the willpower to make the actual transfers, the application just deducts the money from your accounts and sends you an alert. Oh, I have taken the money. Or I have withdrawn the money. Before I go on to the next foundation, I want to make sure that you guys are still following. So you can just say hi or drop your favorite emoji. I want to be sure that you guys are still following. Okay, great. Beautiful. All right then. So let me just go back. Now, the system that I mentioned about building the savings habit is automating your transfers. Applications like PiggyVest has that feature. Bamboo has that feature. Optimus by AfroInvest also has that feature where you can set a particular time and a particular day in a month, and then the amount to be withdrawn from your account at the interval that you want it to. So when you have tracked your income and expense and you've allocated your 50-30-20 or your 60-20-20 or whichever one that works perfectly for you, first of all, you have to study it to be sure which one works for you. Then next thing is you calculate the amount, 20% of your total income, and automate it for transfers every month. That way, you don't have to wake up when you've gotten your income for the month and start thinking about what other things you would have used the money to do or you can use the money to do. So you're not so the automation, or rather the transfer, is not based on emotional intelligence, but rather it is just automatically withdrawn from your account without you having to go through the process of transferring the money yourself. Now, the next foundation we're going to be looking at is emergency fund. Now, this emergency fund, right, is more like your shield to any unforeseen circumstance that life can throw at you. Now, we are in Nigeria where there are so many situations. Now, I don't want to sound so hysterical, but we already know this usual saying about village people. Now, I'm not sure. I don't know if they actually operate, but let's just bring down, let's just apply that knowledge here. So now, your village people could wake up one morning and be like, oh, this person has been enjoying for quite some time. Let us make him or her lose his job. Let us make him or her be involved in an accident, or let us make him or her fall so sick. Now, without your emergency fund, you might not be able to cover those expenses. And God forbid that our village people are going to have access to us. So now your emergency fund is more like your financial shield to any form of situation that life could throw at us. Situations like loss of job, situations like delay of client payment, situations like no clients in that particular month. Now, the only way to build this is to start small. Now, you already know that emergency fund is more like your financial guide, and you're like, oh, if I don't have this armor, if I don't have this shield, anything that happens, I am done for. I am totally open to anything at all. So now you have to target at least 3 to 6 months of your monthly living expenses to have aside as your emergency fund. Now, what do I mean by 3 to 6 months of living expenses? By the time you've you've studied your income and your expenses, right? And you already know how much you spend in a particular month. That same amount, multiply it by 6, which is the 6 months here, and that should be your target for your emergency fund. Now, when you hear such kind of thing, I'm not just saying that, oh, once you have to wait until a lump sum comes, so you just put 6 months worth of your living expenses. No, it is a gradual process. You can start with 1,000 naira per day. You can start with 2,000 naira per week. The main thing is make sure you have a system behind it that is pushing some amount of money aside as your emergency fund, so that when any of these situations that life throws at us comes up, we'll be able to reach our hands into there and save ourselves. Now, these emergency funds should be placed in a high yield savings account or liquid account, and definitely not in tied up assets. Now, this is what I mean. High yield savings account is more or less like our traditional savings account, where you're okay, we already have this knowledge of where our parents or people around us are just saying, almost save for rainy days. Now, when you're saving in a traditional bank account, you are just putting money in there. And let me give you a picture of the behind the scenes of a bank, of a financial institution. Right? When people's funds are lying idle in their bank accounts, the banks are not just leaving the money there, right? And this thing I'm telling you now, banks do not want you to know this. Financial institutions do not want you to know this. Yes, you're seeing your last debit alert or your last credit alert on your phone, and your balance is still there. Yes, the balance is still there. The money is yours. When you need it, it's going to be there. But the money is not just lying idle in your account. The bank is using it to invest in tons and tons of high yield return investments, both in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. And when they make those investments and then profits comes in, they pocket their profits and your money is still available to you. Now, we're not saying that the banks are scamming us. They're not scamming us, because when you come back, your money is still there. The same amount of money that you dropped there is still there. There is no, even just the usual maintenance charge fee or SMS charge or the monthly charge. But aside these deductions, the actual money that you dropped in your account is still there. But then the bank is making their own extra profits with your own money. So now when you now go over to the bank, and with this knowledge, you're like, oh, bank, hey, you meet your account manager and you're like, hi, please, I want to open a high yield savings account. I want to open this account, and that is where I want to be focusing my savings on. And yes, they're going to oblige and open up a high yield savings account for you, right? Now, that high yield savings account has a particular interest that is being paid to you annually. Most banks range from 18% to 23% per annum. Now, if you have your emergency fund of about 6 months worth of your living expenses, and say um, your monthly expense is about 300,000 every month, and 6 months worth of it is 1.8 million. Now, You should know the amount of money that would be coming into your account every year with a range of 18 to 23% annually. So what we are trying to understand here is 18 to 23% multiplied by your 1.8 million worth of emergency fund in that account. So now the money is not just lying down there as your emergency fund. It is also making extra money for you. Now, the reason why I said a high yield savings account or a liquid account is so that when any of those situations come up, you can actually withdraw the money and solve the issue right there at that particular point in time. But when you wake up one morning and decide to crave pizza, that is not an emergency. Please do not use that as an emergency. Before I go on, please notify that you can hear me and you're still following on the call. Oh, okay, great. Beautiful. So now, why I said you should not tie up your emergency fund in assets is because assets are more like kind of investments that look forward to a medium to long-term duration hold. Now, these assets usually focus on saying, if you do not leave the particular money in this investment for so period of time, your interest on it will be deducted, your interest on it will be cut short, your interest on it would not be given to you. So it is best not to put your emergency funds in assets, but rather focus them in high yield savings accounts or liquid accounts that you can have access to whenever any of this emergency that you're saving up for comes up. Now, that is the third foundation. Let us go down to the last foundation. And the last foundation in finance is separating your finances. It is best to separate your business account from your personal account. Why? Now, take for instance, I run a business, and my business, I am into consulting, financial consulting, and someone comes up and say, "Oh, I want you to do this for me. I want you to do that for me. I want you to be my financial planner. I want you to plan my finances for this month, for so period of time, and this and that." And I send in my invoice, I send my quotation, and the person comes up and say, "Oh, all right, which account should I send the money to?" And then I give him or her my personal account. Once that money enters my account, I might at some point not even remember that that is my business income and not a personal income. Now, I would decide and be like, "Oh, I don't even remember where this money came from." And then I would use it for an entirely different purpose without having to track my personal income and expenses and my business income and expenses. Now, it is best to have separate accounts for it. Now, let me explain further. It is practical enough to focus, it is practical enough to have at least 3 to 4 bank accounts. Let me explain. So now, when you have 3 to 4 accounts, bank accounts, I am literally talking about bank accounts now. You have one for your personal income, say gifts from people, salaries, and whatnot. And then you have a business account where all income and all expenses from your business is coming and going from. Now you have another account that all your investment fund is going into. And then you have the last account where your emergency fund is going into. Now, all of them put together, they are all your income for that particular month. Like when you calculate the amount of money coming in the 4 accounts and you put it together, that is your total income for the month. But now in that way, you'd be able to separate how much that you want to go to your savings, emergency fund, and investments. Now, take for instance, in your personal income account, your salary comes in and say a whooping sum of about 700,000 naira. And then you calculate your 50, 30, 20. You move your 20% to your savings account. Now, when you move your 20% to your savings account, that 20%, you're going to split it into two, where 50 of that 20%, 50% of the 20% is going to your investment, while the remaining 50% is going to be saved in a high yield savings account, right? And then you now transfer your 30% to an expense account. Now that expense account is where your daily expenses, transportation, coffee, any just that quick, or the usual daily expense that you make in a day. The reason why it's even hard for me to even mention a practical daily expense is because when you're indoors, it is hard to even say this is what you spend on daily. I can remember the last time I made a transfer, and that was this morning for my offering in church. Aside that, I cannot remember the last time because I mean I am indoors. And now I'm not trying to like paint being indoors as a good thing. It has its own side disadvantages and its own side effects and what have you, and it still has its own advantages. But now the point I'm trying to make here is you have an expense account where that is the only account that if you want to spend on this, you want to spend on that, is coming from. You have your income account, you have your savings and investment account, and then you have your emergency fund account. So it is best to separate these accounts so you can easily track where this money is coming from. You can easily track where this money is going to, and that way it would give you a clear understanding of your income that month or your income in a particular period that you're trying to look at. Some apps like Optimus by AfroInvest even allows me to see, even OP does that, allows me to see how much income how much money came into my account in the last 6 months, in the last 3 months. How much did I spend in the last 3 months, in the last 1 year? So if you have this expense account, sorry, if you're able to separate your accounts, you'd be able to track the particular money that is coming in, where it is coming from, the description of where it is coming from, and all of that. That way you would know that, okay, this is where this money is coming from, and this is where it should go to. That is the relevance of separating your finances. And another relevance is that it protects you from legal issues and tax issues. Now, this tax issue, there's a new tax reform. There's a new tax reform that our dear president has signed into operation, and it will be starting on the 1st of January 2026, where there is the personal income tax, the company income tax, and whatnot. And now the bad side of it is that, now let me know, when I say bad, it sounds like a heavy word, but the other side of it is that every particular person who has an income is going to be charged. If you're making if you're running your finances on crypto, you're going to be charged for it. If you're running on digital currencies, you're going to be charged for it. If you're running on Nigerian Naira, you're going to be charged for it. If you're in diaspora, that is outside the country, and you have a business running in Nigeria, you're going to be charged for it, which is called taxes, right? But now, the reform here is that there's now a particular percentage for different levels of income. Unlike before, there was a flat rate of about 6 to 7.5% for everybody, no matter the amount you're earning in a month. If you're earning 100 million, if you're earning 500 million, if you're earning in billions, you're just going to pay the same 6 to 7.5% as taxes. Even the person earning 200,000 naira, even the person earning 20,000 naira is going to be paying the same amount, the same flat rate for taxes. But now this tax reform has made it that you're going to be paying taxes based on the amount that you earn. So now it is a progressive kind of taxing that has come into Nigeria, where from 800,000 naira to 3 million naira per annum pays 18% per month. From 3,000,001 naira to I think 100 million, yes, to 100 million pays 23% on taxes. So as your income increases, your tax increases. But now, mind you, this tax only comes on your taxable income. Taxable income, I mean, is, when you receive your salary and then they deduct pension, they deduct your health insurance, they deduct your mortgage. It is now the remaining. It is the remaining that the tax comes upon. So it is not coming up on your gross income. It is coming up on your net income. Gross is the total amount of money that you agreed with this company and says, oh, this is going to be your salary for the month. Net is after all the deductions have been made. So the tax is coming on the net income, which is your taxable income. And it is also the same thing for business owners. If your business is earning below 100 million, you're going to be paying a certain amount. If it's earning from 100 million to 300 million, you're paying a certain amount. So it is not just a flat rate now for anybody. It is now as your income progresses. Now, let me bring it back to separating your finances. When you're able to separate your business account from your personal account, most people receive commissions, most people receive salaries, most people receive business profits in their personal accounts. And when all that sum of money is piling up in your personal account, like your income statement is piling up, you're going to be charged for it a heavy amount. Why? Because they're saying, oh, this particular person is earning a personal income of 300 million. So let us charge him immediately for the personal income tax. But when you separate your business account from your personal account, that way you'd be charged the business tax rate and you'll be charged the personal tax rate. And in that way, it would only come on the taxable income after all deductions have been made. So now this would help you solve and it would help you avoid tax issues. Legal issues, if your business is registered under the CAC, that way, now when your business is registered under the CAC, right, you're going to have a tax ID or your tax Promax number. Now that tax Promax number is what is going to be, that is your identity as a business for where your taxes will be paid. So now, if you're running a business and you're not doing your tax returns yearly, you're not doing this, you're not doing that is concerning to that is pertaining to tax under your business, you're going to face some really, really petite but heavy legal issues from the government of Nigeria. Why? Because you have registered your business and you're not paying your taxes. So there's no way to tell us that you're running a business and you're not making profits. Obviously, you're making profits. There is money coming in, even if you're not making profits, but there's actually money coming in. Why? Because they can actually track today now. If you want to open an account, a bank account, you're going to be asked for a tax ID. Now that tax ID, let me use an example outside the country. You know, when someone tells you social security number, that social security number is like a unified number that links everything concerning this particular individual. So now your tax ID is more or less like a social security number. Now that tax ID would be needed for your bank accounts, whereby any form of income, any form of expense can be tracked now using your tax ID. So once they just input tax ID on the portal or on the website, they are able to draw up every form of income and every form of expense on that particular account. So if you think now that you're being smart by saying you're using your personal account to collect money from your clients, to collect your payments from your clients and your commissions and whatnot, you're going to be charged heavily on this, number one. And then you're going to face legal issues because they can actually track you now using your tax ID. Now, do not see this from the bad perspective. It is a very good thing. Why? Because now people can actually say, oh, this person is running a scam, this person is not running a scam. And there's actually a lot to be spoken about under financial foundations. So I'm just going to stop here and move on to the next. If you have any more questions, there will be time at the end of this session for all the questions and whatnot. And there would obviously be more versions of this webinar. Now, for creatives are lucky that they have two sources of income. And the two are active and passive. Now, what do I mean by active? Creatives can make money in different ways by freelancing, performing, or taking art commissions. They can also teach through workshops, partner with brands, or even consult in their field. Together, these opportunities give both income and growth opportunities. Now, when we're talking about active, you know, in English language, where they taught us active and passive voice. Active is more like where the person who is actually like you're talking in the voice of the person who is speaking. And passive is more like you're reporting what someone has already said. Now, in the active stream of income, it is where the individual is actively working for the income. He's actually there. he's doing that thing at that particular time. He's teaching, he's performing, he's consulting, he's doing this and doing that. He is right there at that particular time. So that's any income that comes in from that activity is active. Now, the other stream is called passive, where creatives can earn through royalties from music, books, photography, or film, and by selling digital products like ebooks, templates, or courses. Licensing and collaborations offer additional income, sometimes even equity. Now, this passive stream of income is the other side of you where, take for instance, you're a photographer, right? And then you now write a book on how to edit a particular picture, or you make a video on how to edit videos and post it on YouTube, or you post it on your Instagram, or you're selling this digital product or these ebooks on the internet. Now, you're not right there in the shop walking around and saying, oh, come and buy my book, oh, come and buy this. But actually, the websites are there like an online shop, and money is coming in. So now you're not doing an active job of writing that book every day, or making that particular video every day. You have done the task once. Now it's going to be generating a continuous income for you over time. That is what we call passive. So you don't have to be there. You don't have to be there physically for that money to be coming in. And creatives are so lucky that they have these two sources of income, these two streams of income rather. That is the active and the passive. So with all the skills you've learned, you're getting clients and you're doing jobs for them, you're earning commissions, you're earning royalties and whatnot. So you're doing jobs and you're earning commissions and you're getting your clients and you're getting paid and all of that. That is active. Now, when you turn your skill into a digital product, when you turn your skill into something intangible and put it out on the website, and it starts generating income for you, now that is a passive source of income. And I would want to give us this assignment, right? Whichever niche of creativity that you've decided to venture into, go and make researches on passive sources of income that you can venture into with that niche that you're focusing on. That way you'll be able to create your own passive stream of income. Now, the next thing we're going to be looking at is, we're going to be moving on to the next slide. But one thing I'm going to tell you now is that it is best to start with one product. Now, there's this thing I learned from a video where you have a lot of good ideas. We're not asking you to toss them away. We're not asking you to not do them. But now what we're saying is, start with one, focus on that one, build it. Once it's out there and it's running, you can then go on to the next one. Starting everything at the same time would make you lose focus. It would take your eye off the important details from one or at least all of them. So the first thing, or the best tip I'm going to give you now, is start with one passive product. Develop it, put it out there, make sure it is running already. Then you can now move on to the next one and start trying to build the next passive product. Now, investment pathways. This is the next thing we're going to be looking at. And investing in stocks and ETFs is more like owning part ownership of a company. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard news about, say, or you've heard any news or you've read any article where people are saying, oh, Dangote is selling shares now, or they've opened up their share markets, come and buy shares, or Fidelity Bank is selling shares, or this is selling shares. Now, when you purchase those shares, you are automatically a part owner of that company. And whatever profits the company makes, you're going to be gaining from it. Whatever loss they make, you're just going to either not get paid, or your money will just reduce. Now, in investing, the main idea behind investing is investing for long term, medium to long term at least. Now, why do I say medium to long term? Over time, when you're able to study the income or the finances of a company, right? When you're able to study the income or the finances of a company, you'll notice that probably in a year, the company might be making losses. But across 5 to 10 years, a company would actually be making more than 200% profit. So when someone tells you, oh, you should start investing, don't see investing as a source of quick wealth, where you say, okay, I want to invest 20,000 naira today, at least in the next 1 month, in the next 2 months, I want to see my profits. No, when you view it that way, you're actually going to be disappointed so greatly, because it does not happen that way. There are a lot of things that move the market. So definitely, you might not be able to make returns immediately, but over time, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years more, you would see that your money would even double in size more than you would actually expect it to. Now, stocks are more like part ownership of a company, and ETFs, which is known as exchange traded funds, these are this is more like a basket of different investments into one, right? ETFs is more like different forms of investment inside one basket. So you're not just looking at stocks. You can decide to say, oh, I just want to buy Fidelity Bank shares, and you've just bought the stock for that company, which is just the finance industry. But now ETFs is like a basket that contains stocks, or rather shares, of different companies from different industries. One ETF could contain stocks from the finance industry, energy industry, infrastructure, agriculture, and say real estate inside one basket. So now this ETF gives you access to flexibility, gives you access to different forms of income. Why? Because if one particular sector of the economy goes down, the other one would actually buffer for it. So let's just take, for instance, now with the way crude oil is actually going down now, and you have an ETF, that's one of the assets in that ETF. There is a crude oil share, company share in it. If the price goes down, the other assets you have in that ETF, say infrastructure and real estate, will actually cover up for it. Now, when this ETF helps you to have access to different forms of assets inside one basket. And the best thing is long term. It's actually even written down here. Long term. Now, when you start your investment, I repeat, do not withdraw your dividends. Dividends are returns you make from investment. Do not withdraw them, because you're not going to be using them now. The amount would be too small. That's number one. And also, you would not have any need for your dividends now, because now you're not trying to make quick money, but you're trying to grow wealth. You're trying to build a financial legacy over time. So it is best to reinvest your dividend. Now, compounding your dividend is more like, if you invest 5,000 naira today, and you invest in a company, or you invest in an ETF that pays dividend every quarter. At the end of the quarter, you would actually have 5,000 naira plus the dividend you have earned. When I tell you reinvest your dividend, at the start of a new investment, you're not just going to be having 5,000 naira. You're going to be having 5,000 naira plus that dividend that you reinvested, and then an extra one that you have put inside that same investment for that month. Now, if you have decided to be putting 5,000 naira every month into a particular investment channel, month one, you have 5,000 naira. Month two, you have 5,000 naira plus 5,000 naira for month two, plus dividend from from month one that you invested. In month three, you have 5,000 naira from month one, 5,000 naira from month two, 5,000 naira from month three, and dividends you reinvested from month two, from month one and month two at the same time. So now your capital keeps on growing on top of itself. It keeps on adding up on top of itself over time. So now you're not just, when you withdraw your dividend, you're just having the exact same amount every month, just the same 5,000 and 5,000 and 5,000. But when you invest your dividend, there's like an extra on top of the amount that you started with as your capital, and then the extra that you're adding in when you finally build the habit of investing every month. And it is also best to diversify your investments into our local currency, Nigerian naira, and the dollar currency, because we all know that the dollar obviously is higher than the naira. So when you diversify your investment into these two currencies, you'd be able to beat market inflation and all of that. Now, another form of investment is mutual fund and pension plans. Mutual fund is almost like the ETF, but then mutual fund is professionally managed by portfolio managers. And you can access mutual funds from different applications like Optimus by AfriInvest, the Stanbic IBTC app, and all of that. Pension plans is you're saving, you're being debited a particular amount every interval that you agree with them upon as your retirement money or your retirement plan or your pension money after you retire at your old age. So mutual funds are beginner friendly and it is managed by portfolio managers. So you're not just the one, the only work you have to do is bring out the money, purchase a particular mutual fund, and then there are people who are managing it for you on the application. The next pathway we're going to be looking at is real estate. Now, we could be thinking, just like King Elisha mentioned yesterday, that a lot of people now are thinking that real estate is the kind of investment that you have to wait for millions and millions of naira before you can actually invest. Now, there is something that we call REIT, which is Real Estate Investment Trust. You have access to these features on some certain applications on the internet now, where you can actually invest any amount. I think PiggyVest does that too. Yes, PiggyVest does that too, because I have been able to invest, I think, in one or two places. So all you have to do is go down to the application and just venture into it. Just click everything and anything. And if you think you have made a mistake, you go back. That is how I learn my own things. Before I can then go down to YouTube and say, oh, how can I use this application? I first of all make my own journey, make my own move first, and learn what I can learn. So PiggyVest gives you access to investing in real estate without having to say, oh, you have to wait for 10 million naira to purchase a particular land. And the reason why I am including real estate as a pathway in my investment here is because lands appreciate. Now, you can decide to purchase a particular piece of land now, and in the next 2 years, the amount would be double the amount would be doubled. Now, it is best not to sell your land immediately. I would give you a tip. Do not sell your land immediately. If you can, hold on to that piece of land for 5, 10, 20 years, and you would thank your maker in heaven that you listened to what I said. Now, I have heard stories and I have also experienced a particular piece of land. I think a particular piece of land I got some years back, I think a year and some months back. And shocking news, I'm not even done paying for the land. There's a payment plan on the land, and I'm not even done paying for it. But I can tell you now that land has already doubled in price. I'm not done paying for it, and I can already see the amount of money I could make in the next 10 years if I decide to sell the land. But now, if I decide to build on the land, I can actually build something and then rent it out for people to actually live in, and then I'm now earning rental incomes on the account. Another investment pathway is creative assets. Now, as a creative, you can sell or license your products. You can create NFTs and then have a merchandise line, probably a face cap or a t-shirt. I mean, one of those. You just have to go deep into your research to understand these pathways. Now, these are steps to protecting your wealth. First thing is estate planning. Now, when someone says estate planning, you're already thinking, oh, are you already telling me to imagine growing up or imagine being old already and now I have to start writing a will to avoid my children dragging my profits? It is best to start early. And one easy way to do it is through trust funds. Now, we know this thing where people are saying, oh, he or she is a trust fund baby. Now, the idea behind that is that their parents did not just buy or purchase assets in their own personal name. Rather, they purchase assets in the family name and put it into a trust fund for a trust fund manager to oversee those properties. Now, whenever there is some sort of unforeseen circumstance like the death of of a father or the death of the owner of those assets, they do not have to start dragging, oh, now my papa get the land. Sorry, sorry for that pidgin English. But they don't have to start dragging the land and say, oh, I am the firstborn, I am this and that. But rather, trust funds have standards and rules attached to them. So now the trust fund manager would now be able to go down to the right owner of the estate and say, this is your property and we are your managers. We are going to continue managing your trust fund for you. It's as simple as that. Now, whenever something like that happens, you do not have to start settling family issues and brothers and sisters quarreling left and right. This is one way to protect your wealth. And trust fund also comes with some form of insurance. So if anything happens to it, your insurance company could cover up for it. Another way is intellectual property, which is in copyrights, trademarks, and patents. Now, copyrights and trademarks, when I don't know if anybody has tried downloading a picture from the internet and then you see a watermark embedded under it. So you try downloading a picture, and then when you now want to use the picture, you'll now be seeing something like maybe stock photo or free pic. As it's not like it's boldly written, but there's a watermark under it to tell you that it is free pic that is one of this picture that you're trying to use. So now they've been able to trademark their property on the internet. In that way, no other person can claim ownership of that property except the actual owners who have trademarked that product. This is one way to protect your wealth so that any random person cannot just come up and just collect your property and start using it without your own knowledge. That is why when musicians these days, when you see somebody, before you use a person's music, now let me even bring it down to you. When you're scrolling on TikTok and you see people or creators using a famous musician's music to dance or to make a video, the audio has actually been paid for by TikTok on behind the scene. So TikTok actually goes and say, oh, we want to upload your audio to TikTok so that our subscribers, so that our creators can use your audio. They pay a very huge sum of money to that musician. And that is even another form of passive income for the musician. And that music has been protected by the company or by the recording studio of that particular musician. So now when creators now come over to TikTok and they're using the audio, TikTok is even making its own money as well. But now the main idea is that intellectual property, the music, the audio, the picture of the creator has been protected with trademarks and copyright acts. Another way to protect your wealth is insurance. You can protect your life. Now that came out wrong. You cannot protect your life. Rather, you can insure your life so that in any form of accident or emergency or outbreak, you'll be able to have access to a particular fund, a particular amount of money to cater for your needs at that particular point in time. You can insure your health, disability, and equipment. This helps you to guard against unforeseen circumstances. Now, I don't know if anybody has seen it, but probably something like you'd see a particular wealthy man today, he's driving a car and for some particular reason, there's an accident on the road and he's involved in the accident. And the following day, you see him riding another one. Now, it may be that he has another one parked at home. But now the idea there is that he might not even have another one at home, but rather he has an insurance on that car that anything that happens to the car or anything that happens to any of his property, he can actually walk up to the insurance company and be like, oh, this and this has happened. And then he now claims an insurance on that particular property, and then he's able to replace or fix that asset. Now, the tip here is first things first, always register your first work as early as possible. Immediately you release it out, register it. Put up a copyright act on it, trademark that particular work as soon as possible. So any other person who is trying to make use of it would reach out for permission, and you'll now be earning royalties from that asset. Generational transfer, transferring your wealth from generation to generation, where I think I'd already mentioned trust before. And another one is through writing wills. You don't have to write it to yourself. Just walk up to a legal practitioner, which is a lawyer, and say, oh, I want to have a will, I want to draft my will, I want to write my will, and you write that. Now, when people hear will, they're thinking, oh, am I planning for my death? No, you're not planning for your death. Rather, you're planning for your future. You're planning for your generation. That is the people that come through you after you. You're only planning for them, and you're planning for your future. You're not planning for your death. Please do not see wills as planning for your death. Wills and trusts help you to protect your assets and ensure smooth transfer after death. But we're not actually planning for your death, though. Financial literacy. Always educate your kids and heirs and your team on managing wealth. Trust me, I know how many things I have learned from my mom, because she was the one who taught me early on. She was the one who was talking about savings and investments early on. And I think some days back, I even received a particular share that my mom bought for me while I was very little. I received a dividend on the particular share, and I was like, "Oh, so this dividend is still alive." I mean, I didn't purchase the shares myself. It was purchased for me while I was growing up, like while I was still an infant. So my parents actually did a good job with teaching me. My parents are not into finance. They're not working in a financial institution or whatever. My father is not, my mother is not. But then they had the knowledge that they grabbed along the way, and then they taught me, which has helped me in so many ways. And now I am able and very, very capable of managing my wealth. Another way to transfer wealth from generation to generation is family governance. Always establish family meetings and written values for continuity. Warren Buffett is telling us that generational wealth is not just money, it is wisdom. So when you're passing down wealth from generation to generation, it is not just money you're passing down, you're also passing down values and impact down. Now, examples of Nigerian creatives who were able to use some of the to utilize their income through the active means and the passive means is Fela Kuti and his family, music royalties, brand legacy sustained across generations. We have Davido. Davido is a very, but then he still earns income from endorsement deals, brand deals, equity stakes, and he even went as far as building his own record label that other up and coming artists can come and record their music and do their business, but then they pay him for it. So he's earning money from different means. Aside from the fact that he has a rich father, and when you trace it very well, most of these artists do not even start off with their father's wealth or the wealth from their family. They start from scratch. So I'm not saying that they did not have some help or the other, but then most of them actually had the help in form of debts and loans from their father. An example is Femi Otedola. In his new book, he mentioned that he got a loan from his father to help him start his business, and over time he paid back the loan. So it is more like a kick to help you start, and not just to help to sustain you. Another person is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I mentioned her earlier. Genevieve Naji. She's into acting and producing, and now she owns her own content. We have Alibaba, who started with comedy and then diversified into media. We have Don Jazzy, started with the Maven Records. Before Maven Records, he was a musician, so, or rather, he is a musician. Although I'm not explicitly into their kind of music, so I don't know if he has released a new one or not. But then he has a record label now, just like Davido. He actually had one before Davido. Now, a warning sign here is protect your intellectual property. Create systems behind it. Diversify. Don't just focus on one thing, but focus on one thing, build it, grow it, and then go on to the next one. Diversify into different industries. Own rights, copyrights to protect you and your properties. And then make sure you pass it down from one generation to another. Now, I'm going to close up with giving you an action plan. Now, I have explained to you these things. Now, this is an action plan. This is an action plan now. So start building your financial legacy. First things first, today, open a separate bank business account and track your spendings for your business. Separate your business income and expenses from your personal income and expenses. The next action I would want you to do is, by the end of this month, try any amount though. Do not focus on the amount I put here. You can Please, this amount is very flexible. Do not focus on it. It is very flexible. If you feel 100K is too much for you to spend to save this month, 50K. The main thing is starting. It is hard to start, but it is easy to continue after you have started. So save a particular amount, but like challenge yourself to a very large amount and try to beat that amount by the end of this month as your emergency fund. Then by the end of this year, I know the year is rounding up in like the next 3 months, but at least in 3 months, you should be able to register your intellectual property and start at least one passive product. It does not take a very long time, but when you make your research, study well, you'd be able to know how to create a passive product in your niche, in your industry, in the line of creativity that you've decided to venture into. And in the next 5 years, I should be hearing that some of us here have actually bought our first land and have series and series of long-term investments. Let me give you a very slight motivation. Please, I'm not a motivational speaker, but I challenged myself to actually venture into real estate. And I got my first property at the age 21. I think it was even before my 21st birthday. I was 20 when I got my first property. And make your research and find very affordable payment plans offered by verified and trusted real estate agents. I stumbled upon a real estate agent that I was able to spread my payments for as long as I think a year, 2 years. But the main thing was that the stats was as low as 30,000 naira. And when I started, I got my receipt, I got my documents as soon as it was ready, and I became a landlord at 20 years. It is that funny. I mean, it sounds like it is a testimony. Trust me, like that is the first thing that I did. It was a testimony to me. But right now, it sounds funny to me that I became a landlord at 20. But now the main thing there is that I challenged myself. I mean, if anybody can do it, they do not have two heads. They are not born. Most of the people who are into real estate now, they are not under Femi Otedola's legacy. They are not given birth to by Adeleke. Rather, they have parents just like mine, a father and a mother. So I challenged myself to it, and that was how I was able to do that. And last, this sounds somehow, but before you exit this world, make sure you draft a will and set up trust and teach your children. Most of us here could be young people, the Gen Zs and all of that. And we might be looking forward to having children probably in the next 5, 10, 15 years. But as soon as you start having them, or if you have younger siblings, teach them. It is very important that they know this. Someone is sitting in a shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago.